Back when I was a kid, we had a rule where you weren't allowed to start eating food before we had said the blessing. The penalty for doing so was having to wait 1 minute to start eating after the blessing for each bite you had taken before the blessing. I hated this rule because I didn't like waiting to eat. What I figured out is if I ate my whole dinner before the blessing, I wouldn't have any food to have to wait to eat after the blessing. I got about halfway through my plate before my mom figured out my plan, and the jig was up, but it was totally worth it. My fiancée and I have begun exercising together. She has a workout plan she's doing and I agreed to do it as well. The problem is that I am pretty out of shape, so I was struggling when I started. The workout plan doesn't have sound, just a 30-second timer and some text telling you when to rest and what to do next. If you're just concentrating on working out, you can sometimes miss your cue to take a break. Easy solution: each of us will watch the time for the other person. This all leads up to me, on the second day of exercises, absolutely dying while doing split jumps. My fiancée is sitting on the sidelines with helpful comments like "go down lower," and "you need to jump higher." I'm tired and a little grumpy, so I half-jokingly told her to stop talking. She immediately goes silent and I'm briefly worried I may have upset her. I'll check with her as soon as my break comes along. I continue to do my split jumps. And I keep going, and going, and going. 30 seconds seem like an eternity when you're trying to exercise. I can't look at the screen because my fiancée has it. I continue to do those evil split jumps. I stop. She busts up laughing and shows me the time. I'm 20 seconds into my break. That's what I get for telling her not to talk. Now I use my phone timer that beeps every 30 seconds and we do the sets together. During my time in high school things were rough, especially considering it was an all-boys school. Teachers were strict, physical punishment wasn't uncommon and fights can get really physical. One kid I basically grew up with for 3 years in that school was JB. Now we weren't friends, but we spoke occasionally and had mutual friends. He always seemed, not all there, and had the weirdest conversations with himself that made no sense. Always creeped me TF out, but I never expressed my opinion to anyone. The day he got expelled was one of the wildest days ever to take place in that school. I wasn't there to see it, but I did see the aftermath of the fight when walking with a friend. I never got the full story, and everyone I spoke to about it had a different version. Since I saw the damage, I can say 3 possible stories were true. Either the fight was unprovoked and JB cut a guy deep with some sharp scissors. JB started having a mental breakdown, then cut the guy with some scissors. JB and the guy were arguing and they started fighting. That's when JB cut him. JB was expelled, police called, but he apparently ran off school property. Fast forward to 2016, I'm working for a family friend part-time until university starts up. Boss and I strike up a conversation and he mentions the recent murders. I didn't know much, but apparently someone was going around caving people's heads in with a brick/cinder block. Rumor was he was also nude. Killer had 4 victims, elderly woman plus her son and 2 other males. After work was done, my dad came over to pick up a few things from the shop. Lucky for me, I didn't have to walk home that day. I told him about the murders and he said, "Yeah, I've heard about them. You know it's a former name of school student, right?" Not sure why boss didn't tell me that part of the story, but oh well. I called up a friend from high school and asked if he knew who it was. Not sure why I was surprised when he said it was JB. The kid was crazy. He should have been my first guess, but nope. My money was on the racist kid who stabbed me with a small pocket knife, but that's a story for another day. He was caught when locals found him trying to kill another woman and they beat him half to death. That's the full extent of the story I know. Still kind of weird knowing someone you saw every day for 3 years ended up becoming a serial killer. If mods give me the okay, I'll link an article in the comments. JB's name is not in it. Link. So a customer said something to me last night that brought this to mind, and I thought I'd share. This happened about 3 years ago. I had just been moved to primary third shift at my store, and at the time there were only 2 white people working there, the manager and me. Okay, I'm more of a mutt than white, but I hadn't seen the sun for 2 months, so I was kind of pasty. And this wasn't racist hiring practice, this was a relatively accurate cross-section of our area. As part of my job, when a customer enters the store I have to call out, "Welcome to company /." Also, employees wore, at the time, dress code has loosened a little bit, company issued polo shirts and khaki pants with a name tag front and center on the shirt, where it can be easily read. This will be important later. The way my store is set up, there is a narrow strip of floor between the roller grill counter and the counter that the frozen drinks, soda fountain, and coffee machines are on. This is a strip of floor that always needs mopped, because customers tend to think that it's a shortcut and, somehow, always manage to spill drinks there. I was mopping this strip of floor, which meant I was hidden from the doors. A customer came in, on her cell phone, and I heard her laugh and say as she walked in, "I'm not racist." I pop up from mopping and chirp, I always try to sound happy, regardless of what I feel. "Welcome to, company /." "Hold on," the woman said as she pulled the phone away from her face. She was black, she pointed to me. "What are you doing here?" Confused I said, "I work here. How may I help you?" "No," she told me firmly. "You're not allowed to work here." I was even more confused. Of course I was allowed to work there, I had been hired by the company. "No, I really do work here." "No," she said again. "I was in here this morning and everyone who works here is black." "Oh," I said as enlightenment dawned. "I'm not always the sharpest tool in the shed. No, I work here. The only color, company /, cares about is money." "Oh no. No, this is not acceptable. I'm going to go fix this right now." She turned and left. I have no idea what she intended to do to fix it, but I never heard anything more about it. This happened like 10 minutes ago and I'm so salty. And #X200B. I work at a vacation resort. When someone has 2 back-to-back reservations, we call them stayovers. So I had a guest who was a stayover today. I texted them to let them know that their new keys were ready at the front desk, and gave them the option to come and get the keys themselves or to have maintenance deliver them. And #X200B. A woman walks in, having walked from her unit to the front desk building. The best way to describe our resort is that it's kind of campus style, where the units are about a mile from the actual check-in building. She claims she's here to get her new keys. My co-worker and I ask for her photo ID. And #X200B. Me, duh. DG, dumb guest. And #X200B. DG, well I don't have my ID. And #X200B. Me, I'm sorry, but we can't give over keys without a photo ID. And #X200B. DG, well just call the unit. Or I can pull up my Facebook. And #X200B. ME, I really am sorry, but this is our policy. We have no problem sending maintenance out with the keys. They'll just need to check your ID when they get here. And #X200B. DG, well I have a picture of my ID. Will that work? And #X200B. I went to the back to ask a supervisor if it would, and she said as long as the name and address matched her reservation, we could use it. So I relay this information to DG. And #X200B. When I returned to the desk, DG was abusing my coworker because of the circumstance. I tried my best to be bright and bubbly when I relayed the information. And #X200B. DG, well I don't think the address matches. And #X200B. Me, I'm so sorry then, but maintenance will have to bring you the keys, or you'll need to come back with a photo ID. It really is no trouble to have them delivered, however. And #X200B. DG, this whole trip has been a disaster because of you people, and see if I ever come back again. But I understand the rules. And #X200B. Here is the reason I've dubbed her dumb guest. And #X200B. DG, I've got a degree in hotel management, and I've worked the hospitality business for years. And #X200B. Then why did you pitch a fit if you know the policy? Furthermore, why did you leave your unit without your ID in the first place? Geez. If you know the rules, then follow them. And #X200B. Like I said, I'm salty. This happened almost 2 years ago when I worked at Evil Bookstore Corporation in their cafe that proudly serves Siren coffee, but not their food. For the millionth time, no, we do not sell cake pops. Unlike a normal Siren coffee store, our food came from another vendor famous for cheesecakes, meaning our offerings were a lot different and so was our stock. I'm not sure how other locations did it, but we kept a stock of about 5 thawed sandwiches of each type of sandwich available, so about 25 were at finger's length at any time. Our sandwiches sometimes sold, but we did have to toss at least 1 or 2 every night. The sandwiches honestly messed up the flow of the cafe as they took about 3 minutes to cook while most of the other food was just taking it out of the pastry case and putting it on a plate. You had to almost guard the oven to make sure they didn't burn if left in for a few seconds longer than the timer went off, so you couldn't do other time-necessary tasks like steaming milk or intensive processes like making blended ice cream beverages. It was a summer day, fairly busy but getting towards the later part of the evening, about 2 or 3 hours to close. The other cafe worker was on their 30-minute lunch when two fairly young adults walked up. The conversation went something like this. Me, hi, what can I get started for you? Them, you have sandwiches, right? Me, we do. Lists options. Them, okay, awesome. Could we have 7 of each? We have a church meeting in 30 minutes. Me, flabbergasted, well. We have about 25 sandwiches available. They take 3 minutes each and I can only do one at a time because we only have one oven. Them, oh. I mean we'll take the 25 then. Me, mentally calculating, it will take about 75 minutes for me to do all of them and your meeting is in 30 minutes. They stepped aside to talk about it. I'm panicking inside because there is no way I can make all these sandwiches and serve other customers. While they were debating I had to make 5 blended ice cream beverages and a sandwich. Down to 24 now. Co-worker is nowhere in sight. I am drowning. The line is growing. I am in the pastry case when they lean over and ask me where to get sandwiches if they can't get them here. Me, frazzled, J, Y, J, Z, S, Y? Internally I am screaming, thinking they could have planned this in advance. Also I am covered in whipped cream. This is not the time. They stepped away again and were calling one of the stores, I think? My line cleared up and they came back and asked again, saying are you sure you can't? I told them yes, I am very sure. I am so sorry. They left. The next day I told the cafe manager, a very evil man, the story, thinking he'd also find it preposterous. But instead I got scolded because we could have used the profits. I rebutted saying okay, who was going to serve the other customers then while coworker was on break and I'm stuck making 25 sandwiches. He had nothing to say. So I work for a large multinational tech company. I am in no way involved with this new product. The company at the highest level recently released a new flagship product. Without ousting my company, think central server for an entire office that also prints, copies, scans, etc. More or less, they got rid of a paper tray and put a server in there instead. Revolutionary. Anyways, they are testing this new product in a remote office that I sometimes work in. One day my group is slacking off at lunch and one of the testers of this new flagship product comes over to tell us all about it and how we can put our software on this server in the machine. This is the ensuing conversation between one of my engineers and this tester. E, engineer, T tester. T, so now instead of buying an Azure cloud environment they can buy this machine and host the software on-prem and have everything centralized in one location. E, does the machine have wheels? T, of course, how else are you supposed to move it around easily? E, so God forbid they ever get robbed and someone wheels out the $10K machine and they lose their database server as well. T, dumbfounded, excuses himself. Not really tech support. But always gives me a chuckle. Another dirty magazine malicious compliance story posted today reminded me of this story. I visited NYC a few years ago. Long story short, I end up getting a behind-the-scenes tour of a cool business near Times Square. Business is aimed at tourists, and is located in a building with additional storefronts, and residences above. The guy giving me the tour runs the business I was visiting, but the biz, and the entire building, is owned by his boss, who also owns the other storefronts in the building, and those are managed by other people. So one owner, one building, several businesses. But the unrelated businesses share an employee lounge area, bathrooms, etc. and through this back area you can move between the different stores, so the employees all know each other. And part of our tour is that area, and then the other storefronts, one of which is an old-school adult bookstore. Lots of sex toys, adult magazines, etc. Except some years back, in an effort to clean up Times Square and make it more tourist-friendly, a law was passed that all magazine stores had to have at least 20% of their magazines be non-pornographic. So, Time magazine, Vogue, People, that sort of stuff. No problem. The stores complied. And we were surrounded by the latest issues of hundreds of porno mags, while 20% of the stock was traditional magazines. That hadn't been touched in years. They were literally the same magazines that had been purchased when the law was enacted, to meet the bare minimum percentage. The law never said they had to be current issues, and no one ever bought them at this store, so they sat there fulfilling their legal requirement, and nothing else. Well played, adult bookstore. Well played. Sorry, I don't remember the exact percentage, may have been a different number. The exact number is unimportant. I worked in retail many years ago. Some company introduced a cooler, mid-1980s, big enough to double as a casket. We sold one and the guy carried it out by himself. Clerk didn't look inside. The sporting goods manager comes back from lunch. He wanted to know who was moving the battery display. There were no batteries on the self-standing, rotating display. Every D, C, AAA and AA battery was gone off the display. We ran a quick inventory and determined about 3,800 of batteries were stolen. We guesstimated they must have weighed about 220 pounds or more. The only thing we could figure was the guy loaded up the cooler. The clerk said he didn't appear overly muscular. He wasn't straining or out of breath. Clerk almost got fired on her second day. No one told her to check all coolers. Caught about 3 weeks later selling at a roadside flea market. This is partially a story and partially a question on the legality and normality of the practices of the store I've begun working at. Recently I started work at a big chain pizza restaurant, and I'm concerned about their lack of breaks. I haven't been given any breaks aside from when I managed to get around 5 minutes to myself during slow business. Usually, these breaks are ended by the manager inventing something else for me to do. Sitting down is also frowned upon when I'm not doing anything at any particular moment. So the times I actually deliver pizza instead of the trillion other jobs I'm expected to do around the store are actually a bit of a relief for my feet. I've been given many shifts that just blaze through my normal eating times without a break for food or drink. I even find it difficult to get a chance to drink water and have felt dehydrated and exhausted every day. I also have Tourette's syndrome, so the increased stress is taking a very real, physical toll on my body. When I get very stressed or frustrated, I have a tic that makes me hit myself, either in the chest or face. Recently during a shift, I hit myself in my car probably over 20 times. Is this legal? Is there anything I can do besides quit? There aren't many options for jobs right now, obviously, but this seems very sketchy. Does anyone else feel like they're talking to a wall when chatting with a customer? Like when they chat and stating what they want, and when you get the chat you ask for their name, but all they do is copy and paste their question. Or when you ask for their phone number but they give you the sales ticket number. The whole reason we ask for the phone number is because they usually provide the wrong sales number and we figure they'll at least be able to get their phone number right. I also like the ones who I have to repeat things for, as if scrolling up is not an option. I've quite literally had customers say, "Can you repeat that?" Or my personal favorite, when they're not responding and you ask if they're still there, and they reply yes but still don't answer the question. Actually that's not my favorite, come to think of it. My favorite is when they have a question about a delivery or service appointment but don't want to provide their home address. Very often they'll say it's because they're not comfortable sharing that information in the chat format. If you don't trust chat, don't use it. Who else feels my pain? Please comfort and enrage me with your own tales of stupidity. Since we reopened at half capacity, we've created support staff shifts where the employee's sole job is to sanitize everything, tables, bathrooms, bar tops, napkins, dispensers, you name it. All employees wear gloves and masks. I was at the front door, spraying sanitizer on the handles, when a woman walked up, saw me, rolled her eyes, and said, "I guess I have to wear a mask, snowflake." I wasn't sure I heard her right, so I said, "Excuse me?" She gave me a practiced, forced laugh, then took a small fabric mask out of her purse and, without actually putting it on, loosely dangled it in front of her mouth while she brushed past me. How can people take so much pride in being so completely wrong? A few years ago, I submitted this post on the disappearance of Corey Edkin, age 2, from my area. Yesterday Pennsylvania state troopers at Milton released a statement that seems to indicate progress on the case. In 1986, 2-year-old Corey Edkin of New Columbia disappeared, but he didn't walk away from his home, and he wasn't kidnapped by an unknown individual. And now state police say with confidence whomever is responsible will be brought to justice. In an update, authorities still investigating the 1986 disappearance of the boy say they are beginning to make significant advances. They say they have benefited from cooperation from individuals with information pertaining to the disappearance, and advances in forensic technology. No other new information on the case is known at this time, but the case has never been closed. Edkin was last seen at his home at 159 2nd Street in New Columbia October 12, 1986. The boy's mother, Debbie Morey of New Berlin, reportedly placed Edkin on her bed and drove to a convenience store early October 13, 1986. Several other children and Morey's roommate were left behind. The boy was never found after an extensive search following a report of the child missing. Investigators say they neither believe in the likelihood of Edkin walking away from the home, nor being abducted by a third part. As I was initially reading it, I took the statement to mean they thought a known perpetrator kidnapped him. But the way that last sentence is worded, it has me thinking they believe someone killed him and that they know whom. I'm hoping we'll see justice for this toddler soon. More links. It's happened a couple of times today already. I just went through this, gave all my information. Stupid FKS, what kind of company are you? But when you say those things very quietly, it gets picked up by your phone, especially with the newer cell phones that go out. So you may think you are being slick but you aren't, and at that point my respect for you goes out the window and my urge to help you is gone. I would have much preferred you said it straight to me, than try to hide it. Cheers, for those working still today. Hope you have a great and easy day. I knew Rachel but not well. I was closer friends with her brother. This has always bothered me. A lot of rumors have surfaced but my biggest concern is that there is a high rate of women who disappear in the neighboring city of Daytona Beach. Many reports falsely state that she disappeared from Lake Mary or Winter Springs but it was definitely Deltona. The last known cross streets are in that city. Here is information about her disappearance. She was a sweet girl who was a little shy and slightly struggled to fit, so sometimes hung with the wrong crowd to feel accepted. Even though I didn't know her well and have lost touch with her brother, this mystery constantly haunts me, especially each June and December, her birth month. I also think the police really dropped the ball. A lot of the info they posted was flat out incorrect or potentially lies created by friends to try to throw them off. Her brother posts most years begging for honest answers from the friends. Cast, me user boss. TLDR at bottom. So I worked in this small computer shop 2016 to 2018 as an apprentice, and this is one of the stories I can tell. So I was at the shop alone when a customer comes up to the shop. "Hello sir, how can I help?" I ask. "Yeah, I need a new monitor, preferably something HD," said the user. So I show him the monitors. I can't remember the exact model, but the one he liked was a Aquaracer with a 27-inch IPS display which was 1080p. Honestly, not a bad call. He brought his computer with him and I noticed a major problem straight away. His PC was VGA only. The monitor in question had HDMI and DisplayPort, no VGA. Instantly I deduced he will need either a new graphics card or a different monitor. We had a low-profile GPU, think it was a GT 710 or something similar, which just came out of a PC we upgraded for a customer. It was never used outside of the shop and was going used for cheap. "Unfortunately sir, that particular model of monitor will not work with your computer in its current state," I said. "As you can see here, your PC can only output a VGA output. The monitor only has HDMI and DisplayPort. To remedy this we will have to insert a graphics card with a HDMI port. We have one on sale here for £20. How much will it cost?" User asks. £20, I replied. "I don't accept that answer," said the user. "Is there a way to do it without the graphics card?" "No way, unfortunately," I replied. "I can do it for £15 with the monitor if you want. Both come with 2-year warranty." The guy pulls out his phone and starts Googling. "You're lucky you have it cheaper than PC World. I'll take the monitor but not the graphics card. My mate knows more than you, he will get it set up for me." So I sell him the monitor and he leaves. 3 days later he comes in and buys the graphics card. TLDR user buys a monitor that is incompatible with his PC and called me an idiot. He worked at a local Irish pub up until the 6th of this month. We had a cook test positive for COVID right when we reopened. They told us to get tested if we were worried about it. In terms of sanitation after the fact, they just had other cooks clean the kitchen. That was the first red flag for me. I'm not sure how it works in other states, but each employee was supposed to be asked health screening questions and have their temperature recorded at the start of each shift. No one was ever asked a single question. If, and I repeat if, they took our temperature and they were higher than legally allowed, they said it was broken and just recorded everyone as 99 degrees. Bathrooms weren't cleaned as often as mandated, tables weren't wiped down. I have my extremely high-risk elderly mother staying with me right now so that I can take care of her. I decided it wasn't worth the risk to her, and voluntarily quit. Luckily, I am somehow still eligible for unemployment. That's not going to mean much soon, as I only get $200 a week outside of the unemployment boost. I have done nothing but work in the restaurant industry my entire adult life, 36 years old. It's scary to think about my future now, as I don't really know where the skill set gained in this industry is considered desirable. I'm used to most people belittling their work. Regardless, I think I made the right choice and I hope I figure something out soon. My heart is with all of you who are still forced into working in these unsafe times. If there is anything I can do to make your quality of life better, please let me know. I don't have much money, but I'd love to help you if you are in need of a mask, or even just more pens. I work in the medical side of things and my day-to-day is managing systems that track patient information for multiple uses such as a patient's inpatient history, upcoming clinic appointments, etc. One of our systems is used to book patients into our outpatient clinics, manage their appointments and update their outcomes. It also plugs into an external text messaging service that will automatically text the patient if their appointment time or status has changed, for example if it's cancelled. Our team, me, gets a support ticket from a clinic secretary, CS, reporting an issue with the text message service. Paraphrased. CS, hi, I have a patient who has arrived into the clinic here today but their appointment was cancelled 2 weeks ago. They say they never got the cancellation text but they should have been texted 2 weeks ago when the clinic was cancelled. Patient is understandably very annoyed, but this is the only report of this issue so I do a quick audit of the activity recorded against the patient's record. Me, okay, I'm just going through the patient's account history. I can see today's appointment was booked a few months ago by you. When did you say today's clinic was cancelled? CS, 2 weeks ago. The consultant due to run the clinic was going on leave so we were told the clinic wasn't going ahead and we were to reschedule the appointments. Me, okay. And when, I ask, knowing the answer already as I can see the audit, did you actually update the patient's appointment information on the system? CS, yesterday evening. Me, so not 2 weeks ago? CS, no. Me, so the reason the patient didn't get a cancellation message 2 weeks ago is because you didn't actually cancel the appointment on the system 2 weeks ago. Our text messages go in batches at different times during the day, so the message generated by the record update late the day prior hadn't yet gone out. Me, the good news is the text service is fine and the patient will get the cancellation message today. But if you don't update the appointments in a timely fashion on the system then patients won't get the texts in time. CS, okay thanks. It goes without saying that if you or someone you know does manage to invent time-traveling text messaging, please let me know. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee, cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. This is accidental malicious compliance. When I was around maybe 6 I was out with my grandparents and one of their friends that lived near them. We had just eaten at a fast food place and were heading out to the car. Grandpa driving, friend in the front seat, me and Grandma in the back. My grandpa was born in a different country and while his English is more than proficient sometimes he would use a wrong word that was similar to the one he meant. I got into the back, slid over, and left the door open for Grandma. Grandpa and friend got into the front. Normally Grandma should have been in the car by now because she was faster/more mobile than their friend, I forget why, but she got delayed somehow, dropped something maybe? Not much of a delay, but enough that they were seated in the front and talking already. Grandpa was ready to go and yelled lock the door. Quick temper. Now, what he meant was close the door. But I maliciously complied and closed the door and locked it while he started the car. Grandma got to the door and couldn't open it. I stared dumbfounded/confused having done what I was told to do. Before he realized his wife wasn't in the car, he started to drive towards the exit of the parking lot, with my grandma staring dumbstruck as he did. Almost to the exit I said, "But what about Grandma?" which made him look in the mirror and quickly turn around in the parking lot. She was kind of amused when I said he told me to lock the door, knowing he meant close it, a common mistake for him. We all had a laugh. So this is going to be a short one. I work as a cashier at a large pharmacy chain. We have a pretty simple rewards card that a lot of people have. For context, employees normally have two different cards. At least, I do. I have one from before I worked here, and one that's my employee discount card. We're not supposed to ring people up with our card, because that looks like we're checking ourselves out, but if someone just can't remember their phone number, we're allowed to use our non-benefits card to give them the discount on something. Emphasis on not supposed to. We do it just on a trusting basis. So I'm ringing up these three girls. I don't know if they were sisters, but when I asked one of them for a card, she said, "Oh, my mom told me that she always asks the cashier for their card, so can you use yours?" I actually stopped ringing the stuff up for a second before continuing. I didn't say as much as I wanted to, but because I honestly felt bad for them, I used my non-benefits card while telling them that their mom's practice is really bad, both for the cashier and her. It could possibly land the cashier in trouble if they do it often enough, and it's just lazy on her part not to spend a few minutes signing up for her own. They went on and I haven't had anyone else ask that. I genuinely am still wondering to this day whether they were lying about their mom always doing it, or if the mom was lying to them. Or maybe they were all telling the truth, and that would be insane. So first post and on mobile, so please correct me if I mess up. I work in auto insurance billing. Straight into the story. Today I had a policyholder, Mr. PH, call in. He had a very masculine name and was listed as male on the policy. However, the caller's voice was very feminine. We have a verification checklist and if they pass we take their word for it, even in cases like this. I looked through the policy notes and we've had many, escalated, calls from the Mr. PH's mom. She's now a listed user with full permissions to access the policy. Literally no reason to lie. She just needed to know the bill due date. I run through the verification checklist over and over and she insists she is Mr. PH. I even mention how mom has full permission and how nice she's been to pay the bill. But she keeps up the act. Okay. I tell her the due date and she utters those beautiful words. "I want to check on another policy." "Okay, Mr. PH." I put in the policy number and sweet glory. "I'm sorry, Mr. PH, the PH on this policy does not have you as a listed operator. I cannot give out any personal information regarding this policy." Oh yeah. Bye. So I had suspicions that my coworker was a Kevin. The email I got from them today confirmed. Background: coworker is a manager, has been with the company for 6 years or so. Kevin sent an email, CC'd me and another manager on it. The email address Kevin used was incorrect and got bounced back. Several days later Kevin forwards me the bounce back and says I never sent an email. Why would I get this? For those of you unfamiliar with a bounce back email, the original email is quoted below the bounce back message. First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me: "Okay, tell me exactly what happened." CLR: "Yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head." Me: "Okay, are you with her now?" CLR: "Well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here." Me: "Have you gone to check on her yet?" CLR: "No, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her." Me: "Can you please go check on the patient?" CLR: "Yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them." Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMTs got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears, than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. Last week I was locking the clubhouse and discovered a storage room door was left open and the key was still in the lock. I documented it on my report and took photos to go with my report, closed and locked the door and turned in the key to the gatehouse explaining what the key was for and where I found it and telling the gatehouse officer to give the key to the supervisor who is relieving her so they can give it to the management for the client when they come in. Nothing is heard about the issue until today. Today my supervisor calls me asking if I know where the key is at. I explain that I gave the key to the officer at the gate with explicit instructions to hand that key to you when you came in. Evidently they didn't. Now, the management is looking for the key and seen that I found it and had asked my supervisor to ask me if I know where it's at even though my report says I turned it into the gatehouse. So now when I get into work tonight, I have to talk to the officer that will be coming in for the third shift gatehouse post and ask them if they remember what they did with the key, and if not, we both have to look for the key. If we can't find it and the client has to change the lock, that officer will be paying for the lock since they didn't follow directions. This is not the first incident I have had with the third shift officer at the gatehouse. I've got more and have reported them all to my supervisor. The officer is a nice person, very friendly, but it seems they just don't want to remember how to do the job they signed up for. I work as a cashier at a retail store. I was checking people out, and there were two managers also checking people out. I was checking this customer out, and I also had to answer the phone. I think I took 2 calls. I checked her out while talking to people on the phone. After I hung up the phone, this customer yells at me saying that am I going to check her out or answer the phone. The manager was there, so she stepped in and told her that she was sorry. I then went to another register to check another person out. The manager said that I, or the person on the phone, I don't know which, had a disability. I hear her asking for an apology, which she gets, but she said that it wasn't a sincere apology since they weren't talking in a sorry tone. The other manager was there, and he said that she needed to leave. She didn't leave at first. The manager that told her to leave said over the radio that police might need to be called. She did leave, though, soon after that. Lowe's Canada fired an employee for being late and having an attitude. This particular employee had to self-quarantine for a week while awaiting COVID-19 results. Results were negative, but he did have a respiratory illness, not contagious, not too serious. He was on sick leave for a total of 2 weeks when he went back to work to talk to supervisor about returning. He was told he needed a doctor's note to be able to return. He got a doctor's note that stated he had to work part-time hours for 2 to 3 weeks and gradually get back to full-time hours. Lowe's gave him 1 part-time shift then back to full-time. The poor guy was stressed and angry and still recovering. He works in customer service and cursed at a customer on the phone. He was late for a shift. Then they fired him. Like everyone here, closed lobby drive-through only. Cue crazy rash lady. She has openly talked about her rash and the cream she applies to my tellers. I'm walking up to the motor bank to open up and she jumps out of nowhere with no mask asking to cash a check by just walking up to the commercial window. I told her she can't do that, but I will call the lobby and she can use the lobby teller since she doesn't have a car. She then turns to the people in lane 1 who have their windows down and asks them, "Can I get in your car?" The man looks at her in disbelief and firmly says no. We open and I asked if they knew her. Of course they didn't. She gets picked up before we open but doesn't go inside. Haven't seen her since. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick, he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. I had this "I don't work here" moment happen some weeks ago. Several times in a row at one store. I was at the hardware store, OB Germany. I have very sensitive skin and wear bandages at the moment, as the skin on my hands is irritated and broken from all the hand washing because of corona. I might overdo it, but that is another story. As I was going to buy topsoil and other garden stuff for my raised beds, I wore work gloves over the white bandages to keep them dry and clean. The people in the hardware store wear bright orange clothing. I wear all black. I was asked 3 times in a row where item X may be and what item Y costs. Always replying Sri, I don't work here, and all 3 times the people said they were sorry and moved on. I asked the third one why they assumed I would work here, and they said, oh, you just looked like you do, because you wear gloves. I asked them what about the orange clothing and they claimed they didn't notice the employees were all orange. I was asked something 2 times after that for a total of 5 times in this one shopping visit. Gladly all of them were polite and said sorry. But I will never again wear gloves in the hardware store. And #X200B. Edit, as nearly all comments are about my hands and not the people who mistook me for an employee, I just want to add that I have neurodermatitis. I have been at my doctor's. He gave me a lotion and my hands have since healed. Turns out, having hands in bandages helps against overwashing them. Smile, but thank you all for your kind comments and suggestions. Smile. So about a decade ago I was working at a historic hotel in room service. One night I received a call from a upset woman that spoke poor English but was desperately trying relay to me she had a problem. Senior, there is a bird in my room. Being somewhat dumbfounded by her tone and probably high, my only response was, what kind of bird? Becoming more frustrated she answered me, it is, how you say, Batman. I had to laugh while she became more upset. Finally I clicked and assured her someone would be right up. Then I proceeded to radio the one maintenance man we had working, telling him there was a bird in the irate guest's room. So about 25 minutes later I'm greeted downstairs by Chuck, our maintenance guy, who was literally drenched in sweat. Hey mother at hash. That wasn't no bird, it was bat. Oh. That explains why she said Batman. Anyway, poor Chuck had opened a window and chased the bat around the room with a towel for close to half an hour before it flew it out. Thanks for reading. So I work at a small office for a construction company. I have one coworker that is a grandma, and due to some parental issues, she is now taking care of her 2 youngest granddaughters, ages 7 and 8. She doesn't really have money, so she can't pay for a babysitter to watch the girls as she's working her 8 to 5 job. There is also the issue of COVID-19 right now, so having a stranger come into your house for long periods of time and be around kids is not really a good idea. Luckily, for her, the boss is okay with the girls being in the office as long as they don't bother anyone from working and be quiet. Over the time, I've slowly went from being grandma's co-worker to being a babysitter. This is how it starts. The girls did that at first, until one of their tablets broke down and stopped working. Then, they would fight over the other tablet and would whine and tattle to the closest adult there, usually me. So to stop this I brought my tablet just so that they could watch Disney+. It worked, until my tablet ran out of power. Then, whoever had that tablet would start to come up to me and say I'm bored. They'd bring a backpack full of colors, coloring books, toys, etc. so I know that they aren't bored, they just want a tablet. I would then have to list off things for them to do, so that I could go back to work. After a while, I've learned how my coworker has been parenting them, and when the girls do something, then I just follow what my coworker tells them to do. For example, the girls have a towel and toothbrushes and toothpaste in the girls' bathroom. They are told that they have to wash their face, hands, and teeth after eating lunch. The girls would try to get away with this and go straight back to the tablets after eating, so I would have to remind them as to subtly tell them that they can't disobey their grandma. Now, I just have to raise an eyebrow and they listen. I really was fed up with all of this, especially when my coworker and I would usually be the only ones in the office, but I didn't really say anything because I know that my coworker can't really do anything to keep them home, and they are kids who need to be loud and run around and all that. But, I finally realized how much my coworker was taking advantage of me when she said, "Wow. You're the cheapest babysitter. All I have to do is just pay for your lunch." She not only said this straight to my face, but also in front of the girls who now believe that I am their babysitter. Now if there are any problems, from an untied shoe to a fight over who can get what, the girls go to me first before their grandma. This happened over 10 years ago. This kid, no older than 15, and what I presume to be his mom, mid-30s, came and sat in my section. They had a full table but opted to sit next to each other. They were very upbeat and friendly, but the first real red flag was when she ordered 2 Shirley Temples. I dropped off the drinks and caught them mid-conversation, and that was red flag number 2, flirty is how I would describe it, the woman needling the kid with playful punches and baby-voiced sarcasm. It was pretty unsettling. They were gonna need a minute. My mind's already jumbled and distracted, but the final nail is when I finally walked up to take their order. They were huddled together, and I must have caught them by surprise because they immediately jumped back and released the hand-holding that was going on under the table. Holy shoot. They look petrified. I make no allusions to it and just try to remain professional and take their order. We servers are a voyeuristic sort, and if you throw it in our face, you can bet your ass we're all talking shoot during our downtime in the back of the kitchen. Like, really, do you need to be sharing photos of your breast implant surgery at the table while I'm refilling waters? Or scrolling through your Grindr matches private snaps? I don't mind stories, though. Those are always great to overhear. So of course I told everybody. Nobody cared. She's pretty hot. Good for him. I would have totally banged my teacher in high school. But whatever. I can't imagine people would feel the same about a young girl and old man. I didn't say anything. They closed out and left, and I was left wondering if it was my place to do anything. Again, this was several years ago, and I'm not proud of my inaction, almost feel like an accessory to the crime, and I would definitely do things differently today. But when is it our place to step in on those situations? I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of you 11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. Before the pandemic, I was invited to a baby shower. It was a co-ed baby shower, and I'm a man. There were some fun games and prizes given out. I managed to snag a prize for winning the diaper changing game, on dolls of course since speed was necessary, which was a nice glass mug that had assorted candy and other things in there. Of those was one big green piece of candy I'd never seen before, but I didn't think much of it. I also didn't think much about a piece of paper that was in the top of the mug that looked to be a sort of thanks for tending type thing, so I tossed it. I came home and let it sit on top of my dresser and collect a bit of dust since I don't eat a lot of candy these days, but I occasionally take out a small piece or two. Well, recently I had a big sugar craving so I decided to take out the big green candy piece. I took a sniff of it and it had a sort of green apple scent, which made sense. The texture was something similar to other types of pill candies that are made from compressed powder, kinda like Smarties or bottle caps, but this thing was the size of a baseball at least. So I figured it was some sort of jawbreaker or something. It was in clear plastic with no description, but since it smelled fruity I unwrapped the plastic and took a big lick. A feeling of absolute dread spread through my body as my tongue fizzled and sputtered with an absolutely horrible flavor. It was like sour tartness mixed in with disappointment and fear. I quickly spat it out and went to wash my mouth out, throwing the green ball in the garbage. Today I spoke to my friend on the phone who'd helped organize the baby shower and had put together all the prizes. I told her that either the big green ball candy had gone bad, or she'd purchased a bad batch, and asked what in the heck it was supposed to be anyway. My friend grew really silent for a moment and said, "That was a bath bomb." She then proceeded to tell me that if I'd read the little paper insert that was in each cup prize, that I'd neglected, it would have told me it was a bath bomb. I of course, had never actually held a bath bomb before, let alone use one. But I know for sure now that they don't taste too great. TLDR, I licked a bath bomb because my fat ass thought it was candy. He rolls up in my busy drive-through line and asks about the proper dosing on a drug for different weights. Ask the pharmacist and relay it to him. He goes, "Okay, do you have a piece of paper?" And I go, "Yeah, if you want to write the numbers down, sure." And he takes it and says he's writing a new script and I'm like, "Sir, you can't just magically create a new script." And then he goes, "I'm a doctor, I can write scripts." So I'm like, "Okay." I give him the call-in pad, guess someone left their RX pad at home, and he started scribbling down like 5 scripts for a whole family and I'm like? It was for some kind of anti-parasitic and we didn't even have it in stock. I let him keep the call-in papers he wrote on to give to the other pharmacy and sent him on his way. It was definitely a first. It was kind of hilarious. Also the other day I was on the phone and this guy wants a refill on his son's ointment and I go, "Okay, I'll send a refill request," and he goes, "Okay, I want 4 refills authorized," and that threw me off, so I told him if he wants a specific amount that he needs to speak to the MD. I ask who I'm speaking with, he says his name, different last name than the son, and I realize he is the MD and he's calling to verbally authorize fills, Lamau. I was like, well darn, I wish it was that easy with everyone's meds. Father's Day was pretty normal, much slower than I thought it was going to be though. Sat a couple of 5 tops. Then a family of 2 adults and 5 children walk in. They order their drinks and pizza and I bring out their food. All is normal until a man at the bar walks over to me and hands me his debit card. He tells me he wants to buy a dessert, large slice of ice cream cake, for my table and pay for the rest of their meal. He also instructs me not to tell the family until after he leaves. Well, when the family is finished I bring out the cake and enough spoons and tell them someone in the restaurant has paid for their dessert. They were happy and surprised and I let them finish the cake. When I go over to let them know the meal has been paid for, tip and all, he left a 20 tip too. The dad about breaks down into tears upon hearing this news and the mom said she thought that only happened in movies. The dad then tells me that a year ago, they had lost custody of all of the kids and they had been fighting to get them back. 2 days before Father's Day was the day they finally won custody back and they were so happy to be spending Father's Day together. I mentioned this to my coworker and she said the man who paid for the meal does things that a lot, but I'm looking forward to seeing him again so I can let him know how happy he made this family. It was nice seeing a little good in all this crazy lately. I know this is pretty common in the industry, but I worked 11 hours straight yesterday and got my scheduled break taken away. There's been several other occurrences where I've worked 7+ hours without a break. I've also gotten pretty annoyed about how much later I get off compared to what my schedule says, but I've realized that's so they aren't technically liable for me not getting a break as it's not on the schedule that I was supposed to work a whole shift. I'm not even a server, so it's not like I have tables keeping me from getting a break. Several years ago, I was sitting in my wheelchair, talking to the doorman at a bar and grill near a major university. It was happy hour on a Friday, so a lot of people were coming in. Suddenly, there was an altercation outside, and the manager and doorman went outside to settle things down. But people still kept coming. So, I decided to check IDs. I'm not saying I did a good job, but people didn't come without being checked. There was one annoying standing next to me saying, "You don't work here. You don't work here." Finally, I said, "What do you care as long you get to drink?" Finally, the manager and doorman came back, saw what I was doing, and joked about it. I think they realized that I was better than nothing. Smile. Not me, but witnessed my bar manager go through this. Customer, "Excuse me, I've been waiting ages and you served everyone except me." Bar manager, I'm sorry love, what do you want? C. I'm not your love. Stares. BM. I'm sorry, can I get you anything? C. I think it's awful how you ignore customers who have been waiting for so long. BM. I didn't realize you had been waiting so long, what can I get you? C. Well, I think this is awful, 5 people must have come after me and been served. BM. I apologize again, I'll get you your drinks now, what would you like? C. For free? BM. Sorry, I can't do them for free. C. Why not? I've had to wait for so long, it's the least you can do. BM. I don't think it works like that, do you want any drinks or not? C. Of course I do, why do you think I was waiting at the bar? But I don't think I should have to pay. BM. You can either buy a drink or stand away from the bar, I'm afraid, that's all we can offer. C. Fine. But I don't want you to serve me. BM. Why not? C. Because you're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing. BM. Well, everyone else here didn't serve you fast enough either, what difference does it make who pours your drinks? C. Well, I've just said, anyone but you. Now get somebody else. BM. Well, the other staff are busy mixing drinks, so you'll have to wait if you want them. C. Are you kidding? Flip you. BM. Flip me? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Commence ranting and shouting, followed by the bouncer escorting her out. Our prison system is a joke. It's mismanaged, notoriously corrupt, and resoundingly ineffective, and it's never going to change because prison officials are never going to allow outside oversight of what goes on inside. It's no longer an objective to rehabilitate prisoners. Now prisons are just warehouses for criminals, the mentally ill, and the innocent. It's hard to fight for reform because no one really knows what happens beyond the visiting rooms, and prison administrators have every intention of keeping it that way. Even when the occasional television crew or local politician is given a tour, it's usually a highly orchestrated, sanitized version of reality. That's where Prison Writers comes in. We provide a platform to hear all the stories from within the walls of prison. We expose the corruption, violence, struggles with re-entry, the daily survival of an inmate, and much more. From heartbreaking and emotional stories to humorous and outrageous stories, every story helps us better understand what truly goes on in prison. Their story needs to be heard, and we are here to deliver a platform the inmates need. Head over to Prison Writers to learn about the broken injustices that make up our incarceration system and how we could fix them. When I was 17, I used to deliver for a well-known pizza place in the area. Of course, Fridays were always insane, and this Friday was supposedly going to be the biggest. Halfway through the night I got to deliver to a home for a specialty pie with 5 toppings. The bill came out to $35. Pizza was deep dish when given toppings, so the price was always jacked up, and was hopping for another good tip to bring my night to about $50. As I'm walking up to the door, I can hear them trying to shush their dog. Usually whenever this were to happen, it was common courtesy for the customer to come outside to avoid any issues with their dog. Well, they open the door and their 100-pound husky comes bolting out, jumps, bites my arm, and then attacks the pizza. Luckily I was okay and very disoriented from the whole situation and wasn't sure what to do since the pizza was all over their front steps. They freaked out and continuously apologized. They informed me that they would call the store and order a new pie and pay for both and tip me extra. However, they sent me on my way without ever paying me. My 17-year-old mind was still messed up from getting attacked by their dog. Getting back to the store, I find out they never called and we couldn't find their phone number to contact them. Got bit by their dog and ended up not making anything after it all. For the whole 50 of you who come here, this sub started based off a tale about a kind old blind man that lives on my street. Today I had a brief conversation with him on my way out for work that I feel is post-worthy. I was driving down the street heading out for work when I see Mr. Wilson standing out in his front lawn with a cup of coffee staring at a tree. Again, he is blind, so I decide to pull over and check on him. Me: Hey Mr. Wilson, what's going on? Mr. W: Is that you, clock? Me: Sure is, mate. Everything okay this morning? Mr. W: Sure is, just enjoying the fresh air. Me: Well, good. The way you were just standing there, I thought something might be wrong. Mr. W: Laughs: Yeah, I suppose it might be a bit strange to see an old blind man just standing around. Me: No, not really, it's just that. Well, mate, you're standing and staring right at your tree. Mr. Wilson cracks up laughing and I followed suit. We stood there and had a good laugh. Then he turns to me and says, Mr. W: Care to make a wager, clock? Me, depends, on what? Mr. W, how many of the neighbors do you think can come by and question me about staring at a tree, between now and whenever I go inside? Me, laugh and give a quick mental count of how many people on the street aren't total douchebags, I'd say about 3. Mr. W, well I say 5, so you head out to work and you'll stare at this tree, and when you get off someone is gonna owe someone a beer. I had a good laugh and headed off to work. When I got home I had to go back out and get a 6-pack. Turns out 6 people checked on him. TL, Dr. Blind Man stares at a tree, turns into a bet.